Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 85 of FinalBossTV, your WoW in-game rating show. My name is Adam K.A.K. Bay, and I'll be your host this evening, as per usual, hopefully, until aliens abduct me or the IRL MMO take me. We're talking about feral druids today, sitting down with one returning guest from Miss Pandaria and one new one, as with the patch coming out literally a day after tomorrow. And Tier 17 almost being a fleeting memory. Thank you. Please, Mythic Blackhand, never again. No one will remember you. We'll talk a little bit about Tier 17, but most of the show is going to be focused on Tier 18 going forward. So, yeah. No, if you have a question about Tier 17, if you're still doing that kind of stuff, you'll get a little bit of that, but mostly focusing on the Archimon trinket and stat priority going in for Tier 18 and whatnot. But without further ado, who are our guests today? Returning from Miss Pandaria land, there's Stenhaldi. Hello, sir. Welcome back.
Hello.
You ready for this?
Yep.
Yeah? You gonna say yes and no a bunch today? I hope.
I will say both of those words a bunch of times.
That's awesome. I think chat room will agree that your beard destroys mine, which is totally fine. I think we're okay with that. But welcome. Thank you for being on the
Definitely.
show.
Thank you.
And joining us for the first time now, here's Pawkets. Hello, sir.
Hey.
You ready for this?
I'm Pawkets. Yeah.
Yes.
I raid in Huge Japan and do the theory crafting stuff on the forums and post a lot of it, and I'm sure a lot of people in the feral community know me about that. So
I have no idea who you are. Who's this guy? Who's this guy?
Yeah, some person on Twitter was like, "Who are you?" I don't know. And I was like, "I don't know what to tell you, man. I don't know."
Yep. You definitely have posts on the internet that people can read. Of course, they'll be.
If you don't know, I don't think you have. I don't think you've been looking, I guess.
There you go. Very true. Very true. Well, today is going to be, like I said, feral druids. And chat room, of course, is the quote-unquote co-host-ish or whatever in that top corner there, and they'll love that when the stream delay catches up. But so yeah, I just wanted to get some. Pawkets kind of already started doing that, like the little introduction to who the hell he is. You want to like expand upon that a little more, and so people, if they don't know who you are, they can find out like where to find you on the internet and where you post stuff.
Yeah, sure. So just background a little bit. I started raiding in Wrath of the Lich King and then picked up Feral in Firelands and main switched to it in Dragon Soul. I've been playing since then. And I started theory crafting about going into MOP because there wasn't really anyone theory crafting it very heavily as MOP was in beta. So I started doing that in SimCraft and started coding for SimCraft and maintaining the Druid module a little bit. And since then I've been posting like, you know, stat weights and comparisons for talents and things like that on Fluid Druid mainly, but I've also spread out to MMO Champion, Summon, and Stone, kind of just running the same guide on all three sites right now. So, yeah, you can find me in any of those places pretty much. Post all the time.
Very good. Very good. That's awesome. Yeah, I sort of like, it's slowly changing for me in my perspective for Enhancement Shaman. Like, I might be working on the Shaman guide for Summon Stone. I might, like, I try to, like, combine, there's a lot of commands in chat right now that people can find, like, big compendiums of people. So I need a Feral Druid one. Do you have, like, a giant Google Doc somewhere that I don't know about? Or, like, a link somewhere or some big forum thread on Fluid Druid? Because I need something for Feral Druids so I can add to that. So
yeah, there's a guide that's like sticky on Fluid Druid. It's pretty easy to find, so
okay.
I can link that to you.
Well, I'm gonna blame Ari for not telling me where it was, so that's fine.
Yep. Yeah,
the blame is off your shoulders. That's fine.
I can agree with this.
And then Stenhaldi, sir, you rated Midwinter. Do you just hit things with your cat claws in game? What do people wanna? Let people know a little more about you.
Well, I mean, I post a lot in the Fluid Druid forums as well. I do a lot of what would you call it? Like spreadsheet theory crafting, but I don't do as much simulation. I just rely on Pawkets for that.
That's fine. That's fine. You gotta share the load. That's right. That's fine.
Yeah.
Do you
gotta have someone doing something differently, otherwise you don't know when things are all messed up.
Yep.
Right. Well, I was gonna say, is Stenhaldi the guinea pig because he gets in there first at the lower gear curve to figure out what works and what doesn't work? Maybe. Yeah.
To a certain extent. Yeah.
Do you have multiple feral druids that you do with split clears with Midwinter, or do you just have your main one?
No, I play a bunch of classes. I do have a feral druid on Horde side, but not for splits, obviously. I play it all different classes for the splits.
Right. Fair enough. But speaking, I guess, of that, then, what would you play if you weren't playing a feral druid, Sten? If you had to, like, if a feral druid was wiped off the face of the earth, if it went the way of the demonology warlock, sorry, warlocks.
Well,
what would you play?
I mean, I was considering playing Hunter if feral ended up being bad this tier, so I guess I'd say Hunter.
Yeah? Well, that... I'm sure the eye rolls in chat will be strong.
Hunters are balanced, right? They're fine.
They're fine. They're really fine on everything. They're that fine.
Yeah,
Yep.
they're just super fine.
Yeah. What about you? What about you, Pawkets? What would you play?
That's a tough question. I don't know. I'd probably waffle on the decision for a long time, but I've spent some time playing Enhanced Shaman. I enjoy that spec, so maybe Enhanced.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
Would that be a weird switch going from a class with like 0 AoE to a class with like all the AoE though? Would that be like that'd be the paradigm shift basically?
I don't know. For me, it's more about how the spec plays and how much I can get in terms of entertainment and pushing myself to play better every week. Like that's really what brings me to Feral. So I'd want that in some other spec.
Well, I guess Feral's used to having multiple cooldowns, and Shaman has like 12. So I mean, there you go. You'd be used to that already. Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it. Sort of a general open up of the show. How have you guys felt with Hellfire Citadel so far? I'll go right back to you, Pawkets. Like, how many? Like, what's your guild's aim? What's Teach Japan's goal for your Hellfire Citadel? How's the raid feel compared to BRF? Besides being like way better, and how many split runs is the guild doing?
So I'm not sure if we really have like an explicit goal. I think a lot of guilds really just like, okay, well, let's go in and do our best sort of thing. So that's probably about where we're at. We haven't really done pretty much any PTR testing as a guild, but we've had several members who do it on their own with other groups. So we've got a handle on the encounters. We'll be doing 2 split runs come next week, and yeah, looking forward to it. Should be fun.
Yeah, I am too. I've asked on the stream a lot too about like how the dungeon is different from BRF, and Blackrock Foundry is kind of like Siege of Orgrimmar 2.0. It's just like orcs in like a caved-oriented like sweatshop. Same thing like Siege was.
It's like a green version of Siege of Orgrimmar, basically. Like everything Siege is orange is like, oh, it's all green now. Surprise.
Yeah, but Hellfire Citadel is like there's like Warhammer 40k-esque structuring. There's the Arakoa area. There's the Manoroth summoning area, the Void pool, and the green. Like it's a lot of different like in biomes in HFC. Should be pretty fun. What do you think of the upcoming raid and stuff, Sten?
I think the fights look pretty interesting. I don't think that the class balance looks very good, but
oh man, I'm sure we'll be talking about that.
yeah.
Yep. And then how many splits is Midwinter doing? And you guys gonna go like ham, egg, and cheese sandwiches?
Yeah, 5 splits.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, you're like the last great hope for like, I guess the U.S. and or North American raiding scene. So get in there, all right? We're gonna have all of our cheerleading pom poms, one white, one blue one. Come on, I don't have them yet; they're in the mail. But that should be good. I hope.
Should have bought them a week earlier so you had them on time.
I know. Shoot. Well, Mythic isn't still next Tuesday though, so we got time. We got some time. So I mean, how has Warlords been so far for the Feral Druid? I mean, anything really wrong with the Warlords of Draenor feel for Feral? I don't know. You can like the great Thrash nerf third round the world, but like, I mean, was going bear form for Thrash like fun?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
I will say that it's better to be single target specialized than to be AoE specialized like enhancement.
Mm-hmm. No, I'll agree. Like they try to do. It's weird because you want to feel like you could do like jack of all trades classes, but not every class can do that. And like
unless you're like a hunter.
Well,
there's some specs that are just like, I don't know how that happened. Somehow they're good at everything.
Knight.
What?
Yeah.
Or a Death Knight. Yeah, you're not wrong there. So, I mean, what have you thought of Warlords so far, then, Pockets? How has Feral been overall?
It's been pretty good overall. I mean, we've had a couple buffs in a couple places, and actually a couple nerfs. They were like, we had our Shred nerfed a little bit ago, which was unfortunate because it seemed like it was really a PvP targeted thing, and then we didn't get compensated in the near future. But it wasn't a big deal. I think probably the weirdest part so far has been just tech dis in general. Like,
right,
that was just an awkward encounter for Feral because, like, okay, well, you can go Guardian and 3-tank it and do absolutely bonkers damage, spamming one button, and it's really hard. And then they were like, wow, this is really broken, so they nerfed it, and I was like, okay, well, now we're just bad. So that was that was kind of weird.
Yeah, there was no teeter-totter with that balance. No. No.
Yeah, it was like someone broke the teeter-totter or like jumped off when it was on, when they were on the bottom, and you just like smashed into the ground.
Snapped it in half. Yeah.
Yeah. But the rest of the encounters overall have been pretty good for Feral. I mean, obviously it has some highs and lows, but
yeah. For everything, BRF felt pretty good overall. I mean, you basically just tunneled bosses, I assume, right?
Kinda.
Kind of.
Depends on the encounter.
Yeah.
There are definitely a lot of encounters where, at first glance, Feral seems like it's really bad, but and Blast Furnace is one of those, really. But really, overall, there isn't really a bad fight, like bad enough where you're just like complete dead weight. So, yeah.
Do you have the same sort of perspective on that, Sten? Because you're in there at lower gear levels, right? Like progressing on stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that Feral was good at Blast Furnace. But a lot of that is, like, other classes can do just as well or better on the Elementalists, while also doing... Well, okay, so I should make it clear that Elementalists alone don't matter. Like, once you kill the first Elementalist in one phase, and then you just want to be cycling Elementalist with Slag Elemental, just cascading them. And problem with Feral for that kind of damage is that those are short-lived targets. I mean, 20 seconds, it's long enough for Ray, but not long enough for Rip.
Well, you can also pre-bleed them, which helps a little bit.
But then you're losing out on the Slag Elemental.
Yeah. I mean,
decisions.
I'm not going to say... Well, I mean, I guess I could say it's good, but my point was it's a lot better than people seem to think it is. People are like,
that's fair.
We're on Blast Furnace. Do I need to go balance? Like, no, not really.
Well, the only reason I would say not to go balance is that balance isn't much better.
Yeah, let me just pat on all the security guards the whole fight. I am a great spec for this fight.
Yeah, I'm doing worthwhile damage because I'm topping meters, even though your damage is into the things that aren't proportionally relevant to the fight.
Yeah.
Which, it's like you see the show notes, something like that. You want to lead us in with this, so a flat comparison, I guess, between Feral and Balanced Druid. Because you're both the DPS specs for Druid, well, since Tectus when Guardian was. But a lot of people see Balanced Druid logs, they see and hear about Starfall being amazing, but is that a misnomer between Feral Druid and Balanced Druid? And this is something you wanted to bring up on the show, Pockets, so what's your take on this?
I mean, there's a lot there that's really deceiving. The two specs are... I wouldn't say polar opposites, but they do really have different strengths in a lot of ways, and they also complement each other, which is kind of a good thing. A lot of the situations where, not all the situations like Sten was saying, but a lot of the situations where you're like, wow, Feral is really not that good here, you can switch to Balance, and even if your gear's not perfect, you might be better at it, whereas if you have, maybe you're playing, I don't know what a good example is, maybe you're playing a Hunter and Hunters are... Okay, wait, no, that's a terrible example.
Terrible example!
Hunters are never not good at anything. But the point is, you have options if you're willing to switch because the strengths are a bit different, which is a good thing. But it also kind of skews people's perceptions because they're like, oh, Balance is a spec that does tons of damage because there's all these targets that don't matter and they Starfall and dot them all. But Feral is like not that at all. You hit the targets that matter and you don't pat on the targets that don't matter, and you come up completely different on the total DPS and other statistics that can be really misleading.
Right. You know, it's interesting. No, go ahead, Stan. Yeah, go ahead.
I tend to disagree a little with that. For reference, the I had a balanced spec in Blackrock Foundry. I had a balanced set, and the only fight where I played balance was a fight where Feral was also good, which was Chromog.
Hmm.
It's just that balance, like Feral is probably the best spec for the pillars. Balance is good at them too, and also really good for hands, and it's ranged, which means it's better for the boss.
Right. I mean,
I tend to think that Balance and Feral have a lot of the same strengths. They both have, like, they're both, okay, they both don't have good burst AoE. Balance does not have good burst AoE, it has sustained AoE. Feral
right.
can do pretty good sustained cleave damage. And they both, like, did I say, they both have 3-minute cooldowns, which is what made them good on Chromog.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, they certainly have a lot of strengths that overlap, but
Yeah.
Balance has things that it can do that kind of cover a good portion of the gap in Feral's toolkit, but not all of it. So
It's almost like it's similar in regards to enhancement and elemental shaman, because elemental shaman has mostly better sustained single target and better cleave, but as enhancement you have better burst single target and better AoE. So it's sort of this weird parallel where, in that same regard, we're both the hybrid specs, one's range, one deep, one's melee, and they sort of have mirroring issues, but the other spec does more better, I guess, in that regard. It's strange. It's almost like that. But
yeah.
I guess you could
Pretty
also,
similar.
you probably could argue that you could go like super single target Moonkin though, just like you could go super single target Feral. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, Feral has a more developed single target niche than Balance does, though. I mean, Balance single target is good. Don't get me wrong; it's not like far behind Feral at all. But Feral has better on-demand burst, given that you can actually ramp up on the target some mild amount,
right.
which is really why it shines on the pillars and Chromog.
Yeah,
Whereas
I guess
Balance, you have like pretty good opener burst, and then after that, it's kind of like, yeah, I can hit my cooldowns and do more damage. It's not like, man, I'm really kicking the crap out of that thing.
Well, I guess, though, devil's advocate for Chromog again is, as a balanced druid, if you put yourself in the middle pillar, you could hit all 3 pillars, though.
Yeah.
You can cross dot with 2 dots on each pillar and then focus your main one. Whereas
Sure.
a feral druid, you can only tunnel 1 pillar.
You can, I normally, like, put Rake on one, then...
And then run to another one? Yeah?
Yeah.
Ah,
No, I mean, Feral does objectively more damage than Balance to the pillars. You can measure it.
Yeah, the travel time isn't a big deal. Like, you take 1 second running to the other pillar, and then Soul Bash away, and you're there. So it's like basically they're next to each other, except for you can't cleave them, but you wouldn't do that anyway because Feral doesn't actually have cleave like that. So.
Right. Feral's kind of like a melee cross daughter. It's like because you don't. I mean, you could swipe, I guess.
It's kind of like playing a melee Shadow Priest, except for you've got an energy bar.
I was about to say that,
which
but I
is
didn't
really
want to feel
weird. But yeah,
I didn't want to say that and feel like a dummy, but it's a good thing you did because that makes more sense then. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But I guess in this realm then, unlike what Sten just said, because it happened in Siege of Orgrimmar, like you'd bring your feral druid to have an extra roar, to have the battle res, just if you make sure you had battle res in your group for and then feral druids were always like just tunnel the boss. And I know like on Mythic
there were a little more of that in Siege of Orgrimmar than they are in Warlords, mainly because the combo points being not fixed to your target anymore.
Sure. Right. They're on the druid, right? You're on you, sort of.
Yeah. Just like any resource, like energy.
Right.
Any resource.
Okay.
Yeah, I think things were also different then in a lot of ways, though, because you had obviously you had higher energy regen because we were like further into the gear creep, and you also had tools like Soul Swap from Symbiosis, which was like amazing in the right situation. Like there's times this expansion where it's like, man, if only I had Soul Swap, this would be awesome. Yeah. I don't have bleeds that tick for 1,000,000 damage anymore, but it would still be awesome.
Yeah, that's a neat back and forth there. I guess the overall misconception too is that one of the druid specs for DPS is better than the other, which is almost predominantly fight dependent, but also not really even true. Like you could bring one of each and be fine, really.
Yeah.
I mean, outside of I guess Mythic Blackhand, when you wanted to bring 17 boomkins and what's a feral druid.
Yeah, I was
So-
gonna say the same thing. Like the black hand thing kind of skews the perception
Feral
quite
on
a lot.
Blackhand.
Correct. Well, you could, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I did enhancements on Black Hand, but it's way after like the curve of gear, so it's a little more easier. I mean,
Well, I mean, I was feral for the world third.
right.
kill.
You just mostly you just what did you do for that? I mean, all you did is you never went up on the balconies, right? You just
I did.
tunneled- Oh, you did?
Yeah, I can. So I mean, feral can solo balcony with cooldowns.
Was it Rip? Yeah, Rip, Rake, and Berserk, right? More or
Rip,
less. To
yeah, basically Incarnation and Berserk.
get Incarnation.
And Nature's Vigil to keep myself alive, so I don't need a healer. Balanced Druids can do that too.
And all it would
Right.
be is you just rip and rake all the different mobs and move on, right?
Yeah,
Pretty much.
basically rake them. Balance is better for phase 2 though. Mainly, I mean, there's a lot of melee downtime issues in phase 2 of Blackhand.
Yeah, I mean, the thing
But-
with Black Hand is it's not that you can't play Feral on it. It's more like you need a certain number of Boomkin / Shadow Priests or whatever to do the balconies. You couldn't
Right.
just, like, the Feral can't do it by themselves, even if you had several Ferals. So if you've got Boomkins, you absolutely can play Feral, but if you're the only Druid in the raid, you're probably much better off playing Balance than Feral. So it's kind of, I don't know.
Now, just a sort of vindictive standpoint on this, would you both argue, I assume you both have played Balance, that Feral is a better, like, rotation and play style, since Balance just kind of plays itself and you react to what's glowing on your hotbar? Like,
I thought Balance was pretty fun.
yeah?
I think it really depends on what you're looking to get out of the spec. Like, they're different, completely different styles of rotation, and I don't think they're
Of
really
course.
comparable. Because Balance kind of, it's a bit simpler in some regards, but it has a completely different dynamic to it, whereas it's not really like a resource management thing. It's more of a buff management and like watching your eclipse timers and stuff. And watching your Star Search charges, which is something that Feral doesn't really have any of that. Feral is like all resource management all the time.
Right. Yeah, I mean, mana is obviously not a thing for Balance Druids. All you're really balancing is what Eclipse state you're in and your Star Search procs, which is what I'm thinking of now because of Hellfire Citadel being a, for lack of a better term, like a noob trap for like classes thinking they can AoE on like all these fights that have AoE phases, which is not actually an AoE phase. Like it's a trap, right? Like single target and boss damage and priority add damage is much more important than just AoEing. I wonder if that's why the Band-Aid fix came in to like have passive Starfall on Balance Druid, so they can actually just tunnel important targets. Whereas Feral Druid, obviously, what we'll talk about a little later, is that you guys just get more bonuses to tunneling the priority targets. Because again, a lot of AoE on most fights in HFC doesn't actually really matter.
I kind of doubt they put that much thought into the trinkets.
Yeah.
Oh no!
I mean, it's an interesting thought, and maybe they did. I mean, I'm not going to say they
Damn.
didn't, but
Right.
I'm not sure if they thought they're like, okay, this spec really needs this thing, so let's give them that. I think they were just like, the idea was more like, this sounds like a cool idea for something Feral could have, or Balance
Damn
could
it.
have, or whatever the
Yeah.
spec, and then just whatever they got fleshed out. That would be my guess, but I don't know.
Way to shoot my idea
It's
down,
an
Sten.
interesting theory, and it might be true. I just don't know.
You're probably not wrong. I wanted to give the developers a little more like credit there, a little more like shoulder nudge, like Sten's like, "Pff, nah, nope. Oh man.
It's interesting how the balance trinket's like, you can tunnel targets while AoEing, and the Feral trinket's like, you can tunnel targets even longer.
Yeah.
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 Like,
Well-
I'm not sure those are really equivalent, but all right, we'll go with it.
Fair enough.
Well, it does let you. I mean, having Berserk lets you spam swipe that much more.
Yeah, when Incarnation isn't up, which is like 15 seconds.
Yeah. So then I guess, how is in your opinions, from both of yours, and they're a little slightly differentiating. I mean, chat room, as you hopefully realize, that in a top like 5 world guild, it's very different environment from like even like the next like 5 to 10 underneath there. So it's a good way to have a perspective on this. Like, what do you guys think of the melee DPS hierarchy? And of course, you can amalgamate that to what you've tested with right now in Tier 18. Like, what do you think going into it? I mean, Felburn, Trinket, Strength, Melee, F, all the other melee. Like, what have you seeing right now on the like DPS melee hierarchy, Sten? What do you think?
Pretty much Death Knights. It's I don't know. The
Yeah.
the class balance so far has been laughable, and I don't know what it's going to look like when we start Mythic.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's pretty harsh, but maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe not too harsh. It's going to be interesting because I mean, there's no doubt they're going to have to adjust some things. The Felburn trinket has to get changed because it's ridiculous. Basically, for people that don't know, it's a trinket that every time you use an ability on a target, it stacks a dot up to 20 stacks, and the duration doesn't refresh. So after the duration ends, you have to restack it. So whoever stacks it the fastest gets the most benefit.
Right.
And it just does insane amounts of damage, like multiple times too many damage. So any strength melee that puts that on is like automatically higher single target DPS than almost every other spec. It's pretty neat.
Well, it's not even the class balance is the thing. I don't think I've seen any sims where you're not actually using the new trinkets, because I think if that was taken out of the equation, the Felburn trinket alone is doing like 20% or more of a strength DPS's damage. And that's between like 6,000 and 10,000 DPS with just the trinket. And I don't know how that's a balanced point, because just by putting this trinket on, it does more damage than like 3 or 4 of your combined class abilities. Like,
yeah,
what?
It's a bit much.
What?
I mean,
what is that?
That's one thing that's going to have to get changed. It's just a matter of like when it'll get changed, I guess. And then, like Sten said, even without the Felburn trinket, DKs are like scary good. I mean, obviously you're going to bring out their melee because it's not like you're going to have tons of DKs and you can't just stack melee on every fight. But
sure,
even if they fix the Felburn trinket, you're still going to want a couple DKs if you want to be really competitive, have a good comp, which is, I mean, fine, I guess, but it seems a bit much.
No, I don't understand a trinket that comes in and adds 20% to your actual paper doll damage. Like, I don't think any of the trinkets right now in the game will be like, yeah, my DST makes me do 24% more damage. Like, no. So it's a little bit disvalued compared to, I mean, the agility version, our version, right, would probably be the soul capacitor, and like it's good and bad, and the weird like meteor interaction, and you can like pad when the proc comes up, and like AoE things, and then make sure you only meteor the boss, and it's good, but the Felburn can stack up on all the AoE just by hitting AoE abilities, like with warriors and paladins and death knights. So like it's a constant thing. And that's not even including the cleave trinket they get too. So, which is that the point? I mean, because our melee is supposed to be the ones that do all the AoEing, and single targeting is just all range DPS, just tunnel bosses now for HFC. It looks like that.
I mean, you could pitch crazier ideas than that. So I mean, who knows? It could happen.
It could happen. We're gonna see top guild kills of Archimon with like 8 strength DPS, and all hunters and strength DPS just destroying Archimon week 2. Watch. Then Blizzard will be like, whoops.
It's like three DKs and 3 warriors. Anytime ad spawn, just blade storms and howling blasts everywhere. They all die, and then the range keep tunneling the boss. Perfect comp.
Yep. Perfect comp. So I guess for Feral Druid then, looking at your tier 17 to tier 18 like progression here, are there any problems that are being fixed or problems being added? Like, what's the better way to look at to tier 17 and tier 18 for Feral, just as a whole?
You mean the sets?
Just sets and balancing, and how the fights are going to work out for you guys. Like, is it an improvement upon the whole? Like, were there any glaring flaws you guys had in tier 17 that are being alleviated going into tier 18, or vice versa?
Pretty much everything that we have in T17 is going on in the T18, except for the current set bonuses, obviously. I mean, not much has really changed in terms of what we already had. Our AoE is still relatively unaddressed. Like, they buffed our bleeds a little bit, but that doesn't really change that much. You still can't really swipe in most situations, or at least it's not like a big difference between just tunneling the boss. Someone else can just do the damage. So that's still a thing. And then you have the new set bonuses and trinket, which add limitations. You could say it's not. You could say it's not a problem. Maybe you enjoy the playstyle changes, but they certainly do limit the spec more than it was in the current tier.
Yeah, you can no longer pool energy. You have to to get the benefit from the set bonus. You have to be on the target all the time.
Yeah, and the trinket, you have to be on the target for like 50 seconds straight, which is pretty cool.
But I mean, there's based on almost any encounter, like depending on if like you phase with Deadeye to go down and get your 600% damage buff or some crap like that, or Iron Reaver takes off. Almost any encounter you can just, or you know, Iskar flies away for the intermission phases. There's not a lot that like forces you off doing that, you know, and tunneling, as a feral druid would like to do. So probably pretty okay.
Sure.
Well,
I mean, there are some situations for sure, but it's not like every single encounter is just like, oh no, I can't stick on the target. What are these set bonuses are terrible? But I mean,
there's frequently cases where you have to dodge something like the Tempest on Valari, for example.
Ugh.
Yeah, that's a great mechanic. I love that one. No shots fired here. It's just crazy. But yeah, it's just a change of pace from the current content, because right now you have kind of like a deliberate gameplay where you can plan, like, there's very little unpredictable other than like combo points. And you can pool ahead of time, like ads are going to spawn. Say you're doing Cormorant, where all the hands spawn, and you need to AoE them. Like, you can pool up to full energy and then dump all your energy when they spawn. That's fine with the current stuff. But when you get the new set bonuses, if you do that, you're risking wasting a ton of energy if you get Omen procs, which offers this weird situation. It's like, I can either have a full bar of energy every time, or I can have a chance of wasting a ton of damage if I have a full bar and then get procs.
Well, that's in that situation on Corn Dog. His name is, by the way, his name's Corn Dog.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be like other melee could do that AoE that you don't have to worry about, and until you get pulled away a little bit from the boss, you could still just hit Corn Dog.
True.
So like,
I mean, that comes down to how much damage is really needed to handle those things.
Of course.
Especially when we get to the place with the right amount of gear.
Right. So. Yes, and how many Fellburn trinkets you have on your strength melee,
and how many Fellcleave trinkets, and how many of them proc each time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, you could go into a hand phase on Corn Dog with like 3 capacitor procs on your agility DPS, and then all of a sudden, hands are dead. So some people
like
all
no damage would split.
All your melee have the Fellcleave trinket, and then you just get pulled together in the hand spawn, and for some reason, all the Fellcleave proc twice in a row, and all the hands instantly die. It's like, oh, yeah, I didn't want to AoE those anyway. Whatever.
Yeah. That's why a lot of the AoE phases of anything in HFC is like a misnomer. It's not actually not like everyone AoE. It's not like Darmak, where even though Darmak wasn't even like that either, because that was just padding. But yeah.
Not like Tectis, where the encounter ends when everything gets blown up.
Yeah, that's a on purpose AoE fight, exactly. Yeah. Looking back, how about to Mists or Cataclysm? Do you both feel that Feral Druid is better than it used to be now? Like, is the incarnation now with like the ability pruning and the like rampant feels like it's still beta hotfixes all the time? Like, is it better than it was now, or do you prefer a Cataclysm or Mist style of Feral Druid? Sten, what do you think?
I think overall it's better. Obviously, the AoE has been much better in Cataclysm, and still better in Mists than it is now. The target switching, I guess, going into Mists and Warlords, Feral became like one of the top single target specs, and it wasn't really in Cataclysm, so that's a pretty big boon.
Right.
Cataclysm it had. I loved the Feral Charge free Ravage. That made target switching really great, and it's sad that we don't have that now.
But overall,
I think it's probably It was strong, and it was really strong in toward the end of Mist of Pandaria as well. So I don't know.
What do you think, Pawkets?
I would say if you want to compare it to the end of Mist of Pandaria, like, I think the end of Mist of Pandaria is the best Feral has been in a long time, even better than now. So that's kind of an unfair thing to compare to. I think mechanically they did a lot of things right. that fixed a lot of problems that spec had before, but they also kind of changed some things that may not have really needed to be changed and haven't fixed them yet after they didn't work out so well. So it's kind of a blessing and a curse. Like, we have good target swapping, kind of, because of the combo point change, and our first bite actually does damage now compared to last expansion where it was like, oh, it was a 5-minute fight, and my first bite did 2.2% of my damage, and my capacitive meta gem did 5%. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That was really awkward. But the damage profile shift from shifting out of bleeds and into bite and shred, but it's still a pretty good balance, really helps the spec in a lot of ways. But then you have the issue where we have like no AoE on targets that don't live more than 15 seconds. So,
Right.
But I guess
it's not something the spec really had in the past. Like on Galacrass last tier, we actually did okay, even though the ads don't live that long.
Yeah,
Well,
feels like we got good trinket procs. Sorry.
No, I'm saying I wonder if is that like less to worry about though? Because if a class can do like every echelon, right? Good burst, good sustain single target, good cleave, good AoE, that means you have to like do everything on every fight. Whereas if you don't really need to worry about AoE because other classes on your raid team, right? Teamwork gets the dream done. Teamwork makes the dream work. That's awesome. Talking too fast. But if that comes down to you don't have to worry about it, just kill the boss. Other people will take care of the ads right now. Like, that's like a little lift off your shoulder, right? Little weight off. You have to worry about this part of the encounter.
Well, if you're having until you start having trouble with that part of the encounter, and then you have a problem where you're not useful in that fight, you need to bring a different class.
Yeah,
maybe. You mean if
it really depends a lot on the encounter design, and where the issues are in the fight, like, and how much the benefit you bring to something that's not directly important. Like, if the issue is we need to kill all these ads the moment they spawn,
well, sure.
and you're not good at that, then you might still be worth bringing, but it depends how good am I at the other things that matter, and does it justify me being bad at this for everyone else to carry me, or would it just make more sense for them to bring in a combat rogue or whatever? And that basically just comes down to how the encounters end up being designed. Like, Tectus was horrible for us for that because the only thing, like, the first phase didn't matter basically at all. The second phase did. I mean, the whole first two phases was like a DPS check, but it wasn't that tight. And then you get to the last phase, and you just have to everyone obliterate everything, and then we're just, okay, we can't do that, like, at all. So
yeah, I mean, the only fight I can ever think of that was that awkwardly focused, even though back in the heyday, was like Nefarian in Descent or Spine of Deathwing with certain burst classes, because some were like, that was the whole point of the fight, was to kill the 10 gens really fast. And if you couldn't do that, then you were just like not a good class to bring.
Yeah.
And even they tried to make, Spine of Deathwing 2.0 with Blast Furnace, and even that, I wouldn't even argue that some classes were not obviously better than others if you had your cooldowns lined up properly with like the first and third, or second and fourth, depending on how your strat was. But I can't think of fights that are so pigeonholy now that certain classes are like detrimental to raid progress. Maybe at like lower gear levels, well, like where Midwinter is going to be at. But
okay, well, here's the example, and I don't know if it's a good example because
sure.
they might tune it really easily. But I mentioned Hellfire Assault earlier, right? It's basically all either AoE, or short-lived targets, and those are both the worst cases for Pharaoh.
I mean, but the mini bosses will be really important for you, and technically, if you really want to like argue the short-lived, you could always go attack the siege engines, except the Crusher, because you have really quick movement speed to get back and forth between them, So depends.
We'll see.
I mean, I don't think a lot of Mythic guilds are gonna have trouble with Hellfire Assault. I mean, it's gonna be dead within like an hour of the door opening. Yeah. So just being vindictive again here, I don't think it's gonna be a big problem.
Yeah, that's the consolation.
I think the issue is when you have an encounter that has, like, every encounter has multiple elements, and when it's not balanced well enough so that multiple of those elements matter, that different people can shine at different things, and it's just like this one big roadblock. When you have specs that have weaknesses and strengths and like glaring weaknesses in some regards, if that one big thing is your glaring weakness, then it's like, oh, well, I guess I'm just terrible at this fight. So, I mean, it's not an issue that Feral has a weakness or has a strength if the encounter design is done in such a way that it doesn't, like, pigeonholing you into having to be good at AoE for you to be any good on the fight. And they've done a good job with that in the current instance in Blackrock Foundry. But I don't know. I haven't done a ton of Hellfire testing, so it's hard to say really.
I think you'll be really well met in the dungeon, because there's a lot. Again, I think the dungeon is a trap for thinking you need to do AoE when you don't need to do AoE, and single target damage is very important.
Yeah, like I said, it's definitely better to be single target focused than AoE focused.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like, I'm only going to be really, really good on, like, 3 fights, and that's by, like, overly trying to scumbag the encounter based off of those phases to be, like, worth it. But if that's my job, that's my job, you know?
Yeah.
So I'll move us forward here. Let's break down some stats and tier items, and then get into more tier 18 nitty-grittiness. So your mastery for Feral Druids is called Razor Claws, which increases the damage done by your cat form bleed abilities by XX%, 25% base, and then of course goes up with your mastery. And before I move on to your attunement, I wanted to double check this real quick. What is the interaction with armor and bleed damage? Does bleed damage ignore the 30%-ish whatever boss armor has against physical damage?
Yeah. It doesn't really matter for bosses. I mean, everything in raids has about the same amount of armor.
Right.
Yeah. All bleed damage ignores armor, even direct bleed damage, which we have a couple of. I guess it's just Rake now, but maybe I'm wrong.
Like the initial, the initial hit of Rake would obviously be affected by armor, but then the dot wouldn't.
No, it's not.
Oh, it's not actually.
The initial hits of Rake and Thrash are both bleed damage, even though they're not periodic damage. And all bleed damage, regardless if it's direct or periodic, will penetrate armor.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Just wanted to confirm that. And then your attunement then. Your attunement is Sharpened Claws. Plus 5% more crit from all sources. Pretty straightforward. Not an incredibly band-aided Frost Death Knight one, which has like 12 lines of text. So what are your stat priorities then for the 5 secondary stats? What would you say, Pawkets? What have you figured out in your math world?
So basically the top 3 stats. Well, the top stat, one of the 2 top stats is crit. In every situation, you pretty much want some crit. And then the other stat depends on the situation. If it's single target, you're going to want to go with multi-strike. And if it's multiple targets, you're probably going to want to go with mastery. I mean, it depends on what's really important in the encounter, of course. But mastery starts out as pretty mediocre on single target, but as soon as you start adding more targets, it starts to get way, way better. Like if you're talking about 5 target sustained AoE, this mythical situation where you're doing so much bleed damage, and mastery is actually crazy. It like is way ahead of the other stats. So it really scales quite quickly with depending on the situation. So yeah, and then versatility is generally the second to last stat, and then haste is pretty much always the worst for various reasons. Mostly because we have such a big portion of our damage that just doesn't scale with haste at all. Rake and Rip and Thrash they're up regardless of how much haste you have, and they don't do more damage if you have more haste. So
the energy regeneration isn't a thing?
I mean, you get more energy regeneration, but the energy regeneration is going to convert into more shreds and more bites, and which is your like lowest damage per energy damage sources, because you already have your bleeds up with your base energy regen, so you can't convert into that higher damage per energy abilities.
Okay. And add-on stats and stuff, Sten?
It's interesting that they made crit our best stat now, because it was always the worst of the 3 stats in the previous expansions. But the combination of, well, the 5% crit doesn't make much of a difference. It's really just how much they buffed Ferocious Bite, so that the extra combo point from crits really matters.
Okay.
It's really a single target stat, and Mastery is the multi-target stat.
Right.
I mean, a lot of it has to do with the crit scaling on Ferocious Bite and
they also changed that. I forgot.
Contributor, yeah.
it doubles the crit chance instead of adding some fixed amount of crit.
Yep.
Right.
And anytime you double crit chance on an ability, it makes crit way better if that ability matters at all. So we got 2 of our abilities that basically make up 40 to 50% of our damage, and well, maybe more like 30 to 50% depending. And that makes a big difference in terms of crit's value, probably more than any other thing.
I wanted to find this and read out what it actually is real quick, and I'm not actually finding the tooltip right now. I'm trying to like ferociously look for it because I want to actually find out what there it is. I mean, there's the refresh on rip on your target, but what is the bonus then? Because I didn't have this in my notes. I didn't know there was some.
The bonus on Ferocious Bite is on Ferocious Bite. It's below the rip refresh thing.
Okay. Well, the tooltip I'm looking at doesn't have the whole tooltip then, I guess. So what's the,
right, well,
what's the bonus then?
It says critical strike chance doubled against bleeding targets.
Oh.
Yeah, that's bite, and then with incarnation, it makes your shred act as if you were stealthed, and the stealth shred is that you get double crit chance, and a damage increase, but it's mostly the double crit chance.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
It's a little good. I mean, because it's weird though. As a crit stacked class, you said that like multi-strike is a pretty. How well does multi-strike interact with like your bleeds and multiple like multi-strikes critting and stuff like that? Is it pretty
straightforward?
Is it harmonious?
I mean, you can just model it as a strict percent damage increase.
Oh wow. Okay.
Nothing
multi-strike
interesting.
is just a strong stat in general. Like, I don't think you'll find a spec where multi-strike isn't a very good stat, just because of the way it's budgeted. You get a big damage increase for the amount of stats it takes to get that damage increase, and it just makes it pretty competitive for everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, looking at tier 18 eye level scales up, what should feral druids that are gearing up right now, unless you're going to post like a BIS list somewhere on Fluid Druid, which may happen, is higher eye level better, or because like the 70-30 split in secondaries, do you want just the higher crit eye level things, even though like if you might get a 5 eye level boost on an item and it has no crit on it or less crit on the higher eye level item, is the agility not as worth more as the crit on the lower one for the higher value from that one? Like how will that work going into the progression race now? Is it going to be you want to value either crit more or the agility on higher eye level stuff more?
It really depends. It's kind of complicated. Like, I don't particularly myself, I don't look at like the stats on the piece. I kind of just throw in the stat weights and see what it evaluates to, and double check that the stat weights don't shift when you start changing the pieces of gear. But for the most part, we're kind of like in the middle range. Since we have some stats that we like to avoid, especially haste, and depending on what you're doing, you might really try to avoid mastery as well, because it's not good on single target, especially with the new set bonuses and trinket. So it's more about avoiding the stats you don't want than it is about trying to go for crit, because crit's a good stat, but it's not like we want it really badly. It's just we want to try to stay away from the stats that don't appeal to us. Like if you see a 730 piece, 730 being the highest item level for Mythic gear, that has a huge amount of haste, like double the haste of the other stat, you're probably going to want to use a different piece. I imagine that's probably most of the slots that we have a different piece in. But there are some specs that are worse off than us in terms of they favor lower item level pieces even more than we do. Like I was looking at Shadow Priest, and I think they're like 724 item level in best in slot, which is kind of crazy.
Ugh, yeah, it's weird. But
Yeah,
that's what. No, go ahead.
Oh, just the way they crit is ridiculously valuable for them when they have auspicious spirits.
Right. But that's sort of similar with you, right? I thought in the building of the show notes you were saying that crit is like equal to agility.
No, it's not that good.
Not that good.
Our secondary stats aren't that good. We're not fire and mage status here.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's a good stat, and it's good in every situation. It might not be the best in every situation, but it's definitely one we desire. But it's not like head over heels above at the other stats. So
Okay, just wanted to drill that in there and get that all figured out then. So again, we're going to quickly go through Tier 17 itemization right now. So the Living Wood Battle Gear, you guys have been using this whole time. Your 2-piece, dealing bleed damage, generates 1 energy. And then your 4-piece is whenever you activate Berserk, your special attacks deal an additional 30% bleed damage to the target over 6 seconds. So, pretty like, you know, free energy, and then it improves your Berserk cooldown.
Yeah, they're basically...
Go ahead. How'd this work out for a tier 17? Good?
Yeah, they're basically both versatility increases, the 2-piece. Basically, it ameliorates our weakness with AoE.
Yep, okay.
It also lets us potentially gain damage when there are gain single target damage when there are multiple targets, which is nice.
Yep.
And then the 4-piece is more burst damage.
Is it does the actual 4-piece bleed also trigger the 2-piece?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not terribly important, but yeah, it does.
Right. But I mean, every time a bleed ticks, then do multi-strike ticks, or did multi-strike ticks interact with the set bonus though?
Nope, just the normal ticks.
Just the normal ticks. Okay.
Yeah. The set bonus, the 2-piece is kind of interesting because for single target, it's not that great. Like, it's pretty under budget for single target, but
right. It's
actually really, really good when you start adding a lot of targets. Like on Blast Furnace, even if you're not interested in AoEing everything, it's an extremely good bonus for something like Blast Furnace, where you can thrash all the targets, and then you're getting like 8 energy every 3 seconds or whatever, depending on how many enemies.
Yeah, I mean, it's generally not going to pay for itself, but you also get the damage of the thrash on your primary target, and it's already barely not worth casting against a single target.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Okay. Not bad. Not bad. What was your off piece that you would slot?
The helm. In a perfect world, the helm. There are 2 helms. There's one that's crit versatility, I believe, and the other one that's mastery multi-strike. I believe that's right. And you can get both of those helms and then swap them for, depending if you want single target or AoE, the mastery one for AoE and the crit one for single target. Myself, I have just been using whatever piece I could get because I can't get like a Warforged socketed helm, so whatever.
Yeah, whatever piece you can get with the right affixes. I've been using avoidance gloves because avoidance is amazing.
Do you have like a huge avoidance set going into Hellfire?
Sadly, not huge enough.
Not huge enough. I've heard stories of people going with like, I've got a 20% avoidance set going into progression. I'm like, that'll be nice.
Yeah, I don't know about an avoidance set, but if I was offered the opportunity to just buy avoidance on all my pieces, I would pay a lot of gold for that.
I mean, I have a socketed glove, but I'm using the avoidance one. If that is any indication how good avoidance is.
No, avoidance is very good. I mean, especially for a class that actually can like get value out of versatility. Avoidance and versatility are, you know, mutual. Like they both help. So yeah, like I don't care much.
The really crazy thing about avoidance is there's no diminishing returns on it, and the scaling is so high that as you get more and more of it, it gets better faster and faster and faster because you can get, if you stack it up on enough pieces, you get increasing returns because there's no diminishing returns.
Sort of like armor pen.
Yeah. And if you get, it's possible to actually cap avoidance in this magical fairyland if you could get avoidance on every single piece of gear.
I thought they hard capped it at 20%.
I don't know. I haven't heard that. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard people getting above 20%. That's why I was curious if you could even go above that. I would almost wonder if they would want to hard cap it.
If you get it on every piece, you can actually get to 100% in theory. I don't know if there's a cap though.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's a cap at 20% or so. I don't know exactly.
Maybe chat knows. We'll see. That's pretty much everything in Tier 17. What trinkets did you prefer in Tier 17?
Well, there's an Agi haste trinket, there's an Agi crit trinket, and there's an Agi multi-strike trinket.
So I guess you probably wouldn't take the DST then, I'm assuming.
Yep.
Okay, so the DST is dead for Feral Druid. That makes sense.
Yep. It's pretty straightforward. I ended up using Skull of War for a very long time. It's actually pretty good. You don't replace it until you get the trinket from Mythic Blackhand. So, well, I mean, I guess if you get a really good one from normal or from heroic, you can replace it, but it's hard to replace.
How about weapon enchants? Is it Thunderlord for the crit weapon enchant, or
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a possibility, I don't think this will happen next year, but if we were to get content after next year, that you might switch to multi-strike enchant if you can soft cap your crit without the crit enchant, but it's questionable just because the crit enchant tends to have higher uptime than the other ones. So,
what is the quote-unquote crit soft cap for Feral then?
50%. Well, 53%. It's when remember the double crit chance on Ferocious Bite and
correct.
Stealth Shred? Yeah, that's when it's 100%.
So 53%, 3% for the boss level modifier, and then plus. Okay.
Yep. And then it subtracts the 3% before it gets doubled, so that's why it's 53%.
Right. Makes sense. Cool. All right then. Tier 18, the Oathclaw War Garb. Even though you look like a dead moose deer thing. That's such a weird helmet. I don't know. 2-piece, 90% increased chance for Omen of Clarity to trigger, and you get 20% or 20 energy in cat form. To break away from that real quick, what does that chance change from, and then to, with the 90% increase for Omen of Clarity?
5.8% chance on each auto attack.
Okay.
Is the base value, and change it to about 11%.
11% per auto with the bonus.
Yeah, it's basically 3.5 procs per minute. But
yeah, it uses that ancient procs per minute thing that no other class has anymore for some reason, which is basically, since it's 3.5 procs per minute, and you use your base swing time, so we hit 60 times a second, so it's just 3.5 divided by 60, and that's the base chance. And then you have the 90% increase on top of that.
Right. Okay. Sounds good. And then your 4 pieces during Omen of Clarity. The next cat form ability generates 100% of its energy when used. So, super energy oriented, like increased single target efficiency, I guess. I mean, this kind of scares me when I was looking at this. Like, is there chances of like over capping your energy? Because what if you roll into? Yeah, is there?
If you will overcap your energy, there's nothing you can do about it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have some energy, Feral Druids. Like, it's just like, there you go.
Yeah, basically how it works is you have to change your rotation to account for the bonuses because they give you so much energy in an unpredictable manner that you can't control.
Okay.
That you have to aggressively be at low energy as much as possible so you don't waste. Because currently what would happen is you get to 5 combo points and maybe your Rip is already up and your Saboteur is already up and you want to wait a bit to pull energy for a Spite or to make sure you succeed with your Blood Talons on the next combo point cycle. And you can't really do that anymore because what would happen is you get to like 90 energy and then you get an Omen proc and whatever ability you use, you're going to waste like 50 energy because of you're going to hit energy cap from the regen because it'll be 2 GCDs before you can get rid of that, plus the energy you get from the ability, and it gets to a lot of waste really fast. So you really just have to dump all your energy all the time, and then pray. I mean, I guess getting a bunch of omens in a row is a good thing, but sometimes you're just going to get 3 omens in a row and you're capped no matter what you do.
Yeah, is that like, it sounds like a good problem to have because then you'll know you'll basically always have tons of energy to adapt to the situation at hand. Granted, you'll know what you're going to do with your energy as you go into a counter, but is that a good thing to have then? Is that like a good problem to have to deal with? Is like drowning in energy? So. No?
You're not drowning in energy. That's the problem. Like it's not just giving you a bunch more energy to reduce, like, so you know how there's the subset of ferals that complain about energy starvation. This isn't going to help them because they can no longer pull energy now, which means the energy starvation is worse than it ever was when they don't get lucky.
Yeah, and it's not reliable is the problem. Like, you can literally, because there's no normalization on the procs or anything, it's just a flat chance. It's not like sudden death for warriors where they have RPPM on their proc. But for us, it's literally just random. So you can have one fight where you get, say, 40 Omen procs, and then you can have another fight where you get 20 Omen procs. And it just happens. Like, sometimes you're going to get a bunch in a row and you'll be energy capped. And then maybe the next pull, you won't get any when the ad spawn that you want to blow up, and you're like, oh, great.
So, like, my thought when I was looking at this, though, is that does this increase your gameplay on, like, 2 to 3 target cleave fights? Like, will this because chat room brings up, like, the new set bonus is just to mess over Blood Talons users. Will this make Lunar Inspiration possibly better because you'll have, like, extra energy to play around with cross-dotting more? Or...
I don't agree. Well, first of all, we already have enough energy to dot 3 targets with Blood Talons. Maybe not without Lunar Inspiration.
Yeah.
No, the problem with Lunar Inspiration with this set bonus, it makes the set bonus more energy in general, makes Blood Talons better, because it means you're casting more finishers, whereas you're still casting the same number of Moonfires.
Yep.
Okay.
Plus, the Moonfire only costs 30 energy, so when you consume the Omen with a Moonfire, if you were to do that, then you actually get less benefit from the 4-piece than any other ability you can use.
Basically, the one thing that this 4-piece improves, other than like better than single target, is it actually improves AoE a little bit better than single target, because AoE damage scales better with additional energy than single target damage.
Yeah.
There's not a very significant effect.
Okay.
Yeah, the more significant effect is you could view the new set bonuses. They're kind of just good at everything, assuming you can actually hit something all the time.
Right.
But the old set bonuses, since the 2-piece is so weak on single target and so good on AoE, when you swap over to the new bonuses, you're actually kind of like shifting out of a lot of that AoE focus from the old 2-piece.
Yeah, and you're losing the...
for new set bonuses that are just good at all the things. So yeah.
All right. I guess I see what you mean with that regard. Like, it looks... Originally, the 4-piece was only 50% energy refund after an ability was used in Omen of Clarity, and it was buffed to 100. So... Was the buff needed, though? Was 50%, like... But now it's like, yay?
It was already strong, but it wasn't as strong as some of the other ridiculous set bonuses, so I guess they buffed it because of that.
Okay. And they nerfed mine twice, because enhanced weapons are so good at single target damage.
I guess the other...
I mean,
No, go ahead, Sten. What you got? Yeah.
I guess the other change... So Pawkets already mentioned that with the set bonus, you want to avoid pooling energy. The other rotational change is that you try to favor more expensive attacks when you get a clear cast, and the most dramatic example of this is if you're at 5 combo points, you're planning to cast a Ferocious Bite, you get a clear cast, you can cast Ferocious Bite, or you can cast Thrash and then Ferocious Bite, and those 2 action sets cost the same amount of energy.
Ah. That doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah. I'm sure it's not something they really intend for. I don't think they actually want to craft a single target ever, but I guess they brought it on themselves with these bonuses, because you get to 5 combo points, like, okay, I can either bite, and bite costs 25 energy plus another 25, but you only get the base cost back when you consume the Omen. So if you bite, you get 25 energy, whereas if you thrash, you get 50 energy, and that's like quite a big difference. I mean, it's pretty obvious.
And you can roll... Do Feral Druids have a 1-second GCD or 1.5?
1.
1? Yeah, so you could roll the free Thrash right into the Ferocious Bite, and, like, you just gained it. Which is kind of how I always thought Omen of Clarity was used on Feral Druids, right? Is you thrashed it anyway, but now, because you gain the 50 energy back, yeah, that seems... yeah.
It was kind of a thing last expansion like that, where you thrash an Omen of Clarity. I mean, there's a little more to it than that, but this expansion... even with thrashing on Omen of Clarity, you could do it if you do it at the right times. It's very, very small gains, like 0.1, 0.5%. I don't remember, something like that. It's not a lot. So generally, me and I think pretty much everybody else doesn't recommend doing that. But there are situations where you can get a gain out of it. But with the set bonus just takes that 5% or 0.5% gain and is like, boom, now it's 3 times as good. You better like doing it, otherwise you're losing out, I guess.
All right. So, moving on to your Archimon trinket, the Seed of Creation gives you Wildcat Celerity, increases the duration of Tiger's Fury and Berserk by a whole poop ton percentages. The normal mode increases it by 185%, and the heroic one is 213%, just rounded up. So... Berserk and Tiger's Fury. Tiger's Fury only lasts, like, a little bit of time anyway, so I guess, like, almost tripling the duration is kind of good. And then Berserk being basically made a 2-minute cooldown, more or less, is pretty good. This is a good trinket. Are you going to use it like, is it a set and forget trinket, though? Or is it going to be mostly used on, like, you know, tight fights that have 0 target swapping and you're just tunneling like Fellord Zakoon or something like that?
I mean, you can swap, but you just can't be off the target for much time. You can't be off of a target.
Yeah, yeah. As long as you have targets that are next to each other, it's not an issue. Like on something like Tyrant Valhari, where there's 2 targets, you could absolutely use it on that because most of the fight is just you stand there next to the 2 guys and you DPS them, and that's fine. It's more like when you're in a situation where you have to run out of melee or the boss jumps away from you, or
Sure.
like on Cormrock, he jumps around a fair bit. That it kind of hurts the value of the trinket pretty significantly because you're going to waste a lot of energy. Like you're already wasting tons of energy during Berserk with the 4-piece.
Okay.
So any second that you're not casting abilities, you're just wasting even more energy, losing out.
It's interesting that the set bonus actually and the trinket work against each other, because even without the set bonuses, you can have unlimited energy during Berserk. I mean, you would have to manage it correctly with Tiger's Fury, but that means that the set bonus itself, the set bonuses have no value inside Berserk, and so longer your Berserk is, the less value the set bonus has.
Yeah, well, that's what I was wondering, if they don't exactly seem super like friendly to each other, because having Tiger's Fury and Berserk last longer gives you more wiggle room to not worry about those GCDs again during other buttons, mostly Tiger's Fury because it's short cooldown. So then that means you can actually just use your set bonuses more effectively because you don't have to worry about other GCDs interfering with your regular rotation. But it's kind of...
They're not GCDs. Tiger's Fury isn't on the global cooldown.
Right. Well, I mean, depending on how you bind your stuff, I'm just giving it that regard. So that's okay, I guess. I mean, you don't bind Tiger's Fury to other abilities, so you still have to make a conscious decision to actually weave it in properly. And Berserk is a 2-minute cooldown, roughly, then. So, I mean, good overall, though. I mean, like, Seed of Creation is one of the better trinkets we've seen.
Just to clarify, Berserk is still a 3-minute cooldown with the trinket?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, it just gets longer.
Well, yeah, if the duration of Berserk lasts like 50 seconds, and you can hit it again little more than 2 minutes later, so yeah, that's just...
Yeah, okay, I get what you're saying, yeah.
Right, of course.
Less downtime in between the Berserks, yeah.
Yes. But then...
It's a good trinket if you can tunnel. The best trinket, like if you can get the one from the end of your target difficulty, then it's definitely the best trinket for tunneling. If you're progressing through Mythic and you only have access to the Heroic one, then it gets a lot more questionable because you're comparing the Heroic one to all the Mythic trinkets. I'm not sure it would even be worth using at all if you actually had access to the other Mythic trinkets, but... I mean, it's not that simple. You're going to get allocated. You know, you might get 2 or 3 trinkets. You're not going to have all of them to pick from, so you might end up using Seed on all the fights. I don't know. But there are certainly fights that it's more suited for than others, just depending on how often you're forced off the target.
Oh, of course. I mean, I can't imagine most agility melee won't try to get Bladestorm and Capacitor for any fights that have phases of AoE where it's important to use AoE-oriented trinkets. And Capacitor...
I wouldn't say that Capacitor is an AoE-oriented trinket.
No, actually, it's a weird
Bladestorm
one.
Definitely is.
Right. Yeah, Capacitor has... You almost want to, like, scumbag it with AoE and then only hit the boss for the hit. You don't want to split the damage from the meteor effect on Capacitor, yeah. You want to, like, rip and dot all these things up and then move and then blow up on the boss only. Yeah, I understand what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I can say, though, that even once you have all the trinkets, like if you get all the Mythic trinkets, you're on farm, you're definitely not going to use Seed on every single fight.
Okay.
At least that's my impression. I guess I could be wrong, but it's not far enough ahead of the other trinkets that you would use it even when you have issues with the boss running away from you.
Fair enough. So that means that, like, other trinket opportunities, if you're not going to be running Capacitor, possibly, or, I mean, Bladestorm, rather, would you guys... Is the sensor, the malicious sensor, whatever it's called, not bad for Feral? Because I'm assuming, like, the Fell Spring Coil, which is the passive one, is kind of derp. But it has crit on it, doesn't it? Is it actually not bad? I don't know. That's interesting. It's poop for me.
Not great. It's not great. The crit's good, but the mastery's not really, unless you're doing AoE, in which case you have better options. It basically comes down to you're going to try to use Soul Cap and the Seed of Creation on every fight.
Okay.
And then when you realize that either one of them or both of them is like not working out because the boss is jumping out of your explosions or you can't stay on something during the Berserk the whole time, then you're going to swap whichever one's problem out for the sensor. And if both of them are bad, then God help you. I don't know what you're doing.
I think that the mirror would be the default choice in a lot of fights. Even if you have 2 targets, it's doing twice as much damage, right?
Right.
Yeah, but even at 2 targets, the mirror doesn't do more damage than the soul cap or the seed. It just doesn't.
Is this with the actual seed value, or not seed, the actual capacitor value, or the tooltip spell data one?
Tooltip.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? I mean,
Yeah, I was using the mirror on PTR because it was doing more damage, like in logs.
well, it does more damage in logs because you double dip with it inappropriately.
No,
and...
I mean, no, the log accounts for that.
Right.
I'm just saying that.
Like that, right? Yeah.
I'm just saying that the soul capacitor is actually weaker than its spell data indicates.
Correct. The actual explosion is not proper. The tooltip says that it explodes up for more than it actually explodes up for.
Yeah,
which
and we're not
is
sure if
supposed
that's
to
a
be
bug
fixed.
or if maybe they hot fixed it and the tooltip's just wrong because they hot fixed it. I don't know. One of the two.
We shall see. Anything else on Tier 18 before I move us along? Weapon enchant, probably still say Thunderlord, though. You said possibly go multi-strike if there's another tier of gear, but probably not, right?
Right. Definitely Thunderlord for this tier.
Okay. Well, fair enough, then.
I would say that...
Oh,
Oh, just one more comment about the capacitor.
Sure. Go ahead.
If it even misses... So, for example, I was doing Felord Zakun the other night.
Mm-hmm.
He had a capacitor proc, and then, you know how when he changes phases, he jumps to the other side of the room.
Of course.
And he did that just as my capacitor proc wore off, and so it missed. And if you even get one miss over the course of the fight, that's pretty much costing you the entire benefit of the trinket.
Correct.
At least of the proc.
Yeah,
So
because
it's a pretty situational trinket.
Yeah.
The explosion takes all of your damage in that 10 seconds and like forces it into the explosion. So
Correct.
you're not just losing the value of the proc when the explosion misses. You're actually losing 10 whole seconds of damage, which is...
That's about 5 times or 6 times the value of the proc if it's doing 20% extra damage.
Yeah. Correct. Well, yeah. Hopefully 20%, but right now it does like 119 for the normal version. It's incorrectly valuing it. Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting trinket, but yeah, you can't control the RNG, whereas the Bladestorm trinket you can. And obviously the sensor is just an agility proc with a multi-strike passive, so.
Yeah. I have a feeling that there's going to be a couple fights where you're going to go Displacer Beast just because of Soul Capacitor. Like the boss comes away, you blink after him to hit him with Soul.
That could, hey, yeah. I can't do that. You can. Gotcha. Fair enough. All right, then. A little bit of a break in the middle of the show to tell you guys about some things behind the scenes, a huge giveaway we're doing right now, and to plug some awesome websites and communities that you may or may not know about or do, and you just need to go back and remember. So, of course, MMO Champion posts all of your need for WoW-oriented news. Mostly it does also all the other Blizzard games, too. But, like, I didn't know the orc female running animation was getting updated, but thank you, MMO Champion. Or that the human female eyebrows are being fixed, so thanks for that. Obviously, the blue trackers catch all of the blue posts and updates for set bonuses and things, and other oriented posts that come up from the blues, all go on MMO Champion. Of course, this is themed on appropriately because Open Raid had a huge new patch recently, and a lot of people might be coming back to the game and haven't raided in a long time and wondering, like, where can I go find people to raid with? Like, Open Raid got stronger with the in-game pre-made tool because it makes forming the groups that you match up with online in the game so much easier. There are ridiculous amounts of raiding going on Open Raid. So you can go make a account right there. You can create events and find people that do old stuff, new stuff, whatever. And then there right now there are 288 upcoming events in Open Raid. Like and that's even gonna just skyrocket once HFC comes up. You can do cross-realm mythic in BRF and Heimel. You can go back and do transmog runs in Mr. Pandaria. Set up whatever you want to do on Open Raid. You can then rate your people that you raid with. You can keep track of all of your raids you've done. Like, Open Raid is the place to go. They just did a huge transmog contest with Michelle Morrow recently. Lots of good giveaways for that one. Pretty freaking awesome transmogs coming out, too. So go check out Open Raid. The link is down below the stream. Of course, if you have missed any past episodes of Final Boss TV, they're up on our YouTube page. You can watch any of the past episodes of the show and the after shows, as well as the extra side content stuff if you want some more Final Boss stuff in your life. All the dev interviews are also there. You can type !WOD in chat to get a Google document list of all of the episodes we have done and links to the main episode. All the after shows are, of course, linked in the main episodes as well. We're also on iTunes and Stitcher, just by looking up Final Boss TV if you want to just listen to the show and not watch the episodes on YouTube. And we finally come to it. We're doing a hugemus giveaway on Twitter right now, just thanking our community and giving back and just growing it in that regard. Right now, the giveaway is at 5 Mystic Runesaber mounts, but if we break the 9,000 followers on Twitter before June the 28th when the giveaway ends, we'll be doubling the Mystic Runesabers being given away, and I'll be possibly adding on some more things from Open Raid and Ask Mr. Robot to jump into the giveaway pool. So all you gotta do is go to that tweet right there. If you're on Twitter, go tell your gillies about it. Share the love. Just retweet, make sure you're following. And you could win a Mystic Runesaber, or who knows what the hell else. Because we have a lot of things coming for that, and that's like our mid-year thank you giveaway shenanigans. So thank you all for your continued support. And enough about that stuff. Let's talk about talents, gentlemen. You ready? Talent talk? Talents? Good? Yeah?
Yep.
Ready?
Let's do it. It's a complicated subject.
Yeah, there's like three talents, right? Like 3, maybe 4?
Something like that, yeah.
Fair enough. Well, I'll bring us into this real quick. Your level 100 talents, of course, are Lunar Inspiration, which you get to Moonfire as cat form. Generates a combo point. Deals damage based on attack power. Cost 30 energy. Blood Talons, which is casting a healing touch, causes your next 2 melee abilities to deal 30% additional damage. And Claws of Shrivala, which you look cool. You can cast all your non-damaging druid spells while shapeshifted, and you get 5% versatility. I look at both of your armories, and both of you have Blood Talons. I don't know if you've done much else besides Blood Talons. Is Blood Talons the Blood Talons the Blood Talons, gentlemen?
Lunar Inspiration has a few uses in Blackrock Foundry. I don't know if it'll have any in Hellfire Citadel. Use it on Hans and Franz. I would use it on Maidens, but I'm always on the boats, so I don't. Other than that, I don't use it anymore.
I'm always on the docks, so I get to do some LI action.
Yeah, I guess cross-dotting. Pretty.
It's really fun when you're like, wait, I'm watching 12 debuffs and a buff on myself the whole time. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And then you realize it's actually crazy.
So now...
So the problem...
Oh, go ahead.
Problem with Lunar Inspiration in Hellfire Citadel is, first of all, they buffed our bleeds and didn't buff Moonfire, so it falls behind there. Second, I mentioned earlier how the set bonus benefits Blood Talons and not Lunar Inspiration. So it's gotten to the point where even in the best cleave situation, it's barely a gain, if a gain at all, to use Lunar Inspiration.
Yeah,
you can Moonfire as a cat, though.
And you absolutely could use it in those situations. It's not a big difference, but for a lot of pharaohs, a lot of people already use Blood Talons on pretty much everything, so there's not a compelling reason to switch to LI for a fight, especially if you don't feel comfortable with it, unless you just want to change something up for the sake of changing it. So
then with this, and I did all the testing back in beta on level 90s and level 100, so I kind of got like how this all works, but correcting me from the pre-show meet and greet yesterday, Feral Druids still have a lot of snapshotting, so dots that are rolling don't retroactively activate to, say, like Berserk or to Tiger's Fury. So you have to actually time these things together, right? So if you Tiger's Fury'd into a Blood Talons rip, it just that's the damage period, and nothing will change it, right? Like it'll shift based off of your agility, right?
Yeah, stats don't snapshot anymore, but class abilities still do.
But the class ability is still snapshot for Feral. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like, maybe this isn't the best example, but it's kind of like how when you use Unleash Elements and then do a Flame Shock, that Flame Shock does 30% more damage.
Of course.
It's similar like that, but it applies to Tiger's Fury and Blood Talons and Improved Rake.
Improved Rake. Okay. All right. Well, that seems pretty definitive. Claws of Shrivala, what you guys told me is that, like, outside of, like, having a new model and looking kind of cool, the versatility is just too small, right?
It's a PvP talent. It's good for PvP.
Okay.
And I guess Blizzard's fine with that.
Yeah. If you value the damage reduction and the healing increase a lot, then it is pretty good. But that's unfortunately not something you really care about that much in PvP or PvE.
PvE,
so.
Yeah. Alrighty then. Well, that's pretty definitive. I guess Blood Talons and... I mean, Scrolls of Shrivala is the easiest talent if you are new to Feral and still learning, of course. Then, of course, then you can upgrade to Blood Talons in that regard. Do you normally Healing Touch like yourself, or do you have like focus macros for like your tanks?
I just mouse over the raid frames.
Mouse over the raid frame. Throw it on someone that needs it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I usually heal myself. You can also use a macro to like if you spec into Dream of Cenarius, or even without Dream of Cenarius, you could make a macro that targets your target. You know what I'm saying? Right. So you basically just heal the tank all the time. And you can do that. But what Sten's doing is definitely a lot more thought than most people would care to manage, and would rather just heal themselves. So.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you next then. Level 90s are like the healing / like it's mostly healing oriented utility for Feral. I mean, is Heart of the Wild anything that you have ever felt about for Feral Druid? Because you can't trank anymore.
The only situation I ever used Heart of the Wild this expansion was in the live raid, where I was concerned that a tank might die and then we'd lose the race.
Oh, and then of course. Okay, fair enough.
I actually used Heart of the Wild on Imperator Heroic. We didn't actually get to do Mythic before the content ended in the guild I was in, but on Heroic, the intermissions are so long and so healing intensive that you can pick one of the intermissions and use Heart of the Wild there and just real rejuves on like almost everybody and do pretty much do as much healing as a healer would do outside of their cooldowns for the whole 45 seconds. So it's really significant, but you can only kind of do it once per fight unless somehow the fight is really long and there's parts at the beginning and the end that you actually care about, which usually doesn't happen.
Okay. But then, like you just said, too, about Dream of Cenarius. Dream of Cenarius seems like a pretty good compilation to Blood Talons. Because your Healing Touch is a little bit stronger, and it'll also heal you when you heal someone else.
If you're using, okay, if you're one of the people that only heals yourself, you don't want to use Dream of Cenarius. I normally use it if I am expecting to take a lot of damage over the course of the fight.
Sure.
I'm casting my heals on other people most of the time, and that way the heals on me will also be effective.
It's still pretty good if you use a target of target macro. And then
definitely.
You can basically just take it as the passive option. If you don't want to manage either of the other two, it's a pretty good option for beginners if you don't want to have another thing to worry about. And it's also really good for CMs or just 5-man content in general.
Right.
Especially because in CMs you're scaled down, so your Nature's Vigil just doesn't really heal that much because you're not doing that much damage.
Yeah, that's what I was always wondering about Nature's Vigil, is if it actually, like, it's almost like a longer but weaker version of AG, which is the Shaman equivalent.
Yeah, the big thing is that it only works on single target damage, which is a huge... I mean, for Feral, obviously, you don't have that much AoE damage compared to, like, Balanced, but it does cut the value of it quite a bit, especially, like, in CMs. Like, you're not really going to be doing that much single target damage on a lot of the parts of the dungeon, so not really that good.
All right.
We'll say that Nature's Vigil is amazing for balconies on Blackhand. If you have Nature's Vigil, you don't need a healer. That's if you're solo. If you're running with 2 people, then it's not going to heal damage on 2 people.
Right. If you're up there by yourself, you're technically in a different phase, so all the healing goes to you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yes. All right. Well, fair enough. So at least there is some choice here in this tier. Mostly probably between Dream of Cenarius and Nature's Vigil there, but at least they're both possibilities there. I guess more utility-oriented stuff comes down to like 75 and 45 and 30. Is Ysera's Gift like the set it and forget it?
For a lot of people it is, I'm pretty sure. That you have options in that tier, which I'm sure Sten can talk about, but definitely for most people you just take Ysera's Gift and leave it there. I mean, the other talent options are not that much better. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch Renewal, but Scenario and Ward is really good in the right situations. if I'm expecting the raid to take like a large burst of damage at a time, then I'll use Cenarian Ward for that.
Sure. Like the collapsing ground phases on like Mythic Blackhand. Like you Cenarian Ward yourself, you get smacked with the AoE, and then you get the heal as you fall down.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Sadly, though, I use Sierra's Gift for that because Cenarian Ward does not trigger from the damage that you take while you're on a balcony. You can cast Cenarian Ward on yourself, and it'll just sit there. It won't proc.
Because it counts as untargeted AoE?
Something like that, yeah.
I don't even know.
Weird.
A really good example for Cenarian Ward would be like Kromog, because when the breaths happen, you can put up your ward and you'll have that on you for the whole breath.
I always actually, since I take Dream of Cenarius on that fight, I always just cast my Cenarian Ward on a warrior or some other melee because I don't need it.
Okay. Fairy Swarm, Mass Entanglement, Typhoon. I mean, Typhoon, Mass Entanglement, both important depending on fights where you can actually use knockbacks or use someone else's like grip, like into a Mass Entanglement, of course. Mass Entanglement kind of works well with Ursul's Vortex, I guess. So like it, you know, just depending on the fight. There are not a lot of fights.
The situation I've used it was on the Sorka boat on Iron Maidens.
Right, of course. I think a lot of people use that boat. Yes. Fairy Swarm.
Pretty much useless.
Pretty much useless. Looks kind of cool though. But
the problem with Fairy Swarm is if you wanted to snare a single target, there's so many other people that could do it way better than Feral Druid.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
You would never take it down. Yeah.
Not to mention, if you can get a melee with it, you'll just snare it automatically.
Right.
Actually, did they take that out?
The slow on your
I forget now.
your wounds? I don't think so. It still says it. Your
Yeah,
shred and
okay,
mangle,
yeah.
50% slow. Yeah, still there. I see you guys both had Mighty Bash. Is that because you just need a stun?
That was just for Blackhand. Yeah, on Blackhand, I just use it as an extra interrupt on the balconies to prevent the soldiers from leveling up.
Okay.
I don't think I've used it in another fight.
Only reason I have Mighty Bash is for the trash in front of Iron Maidens where you stun the totems and then they don't.
Yeah.
You can literally not use that talent tier in the entire instance, otherwise it doesn't. You can just pick whatever and never change it. It wouldn't really matter that much.
Right. I mean, because Ursul's Vortex is cool, but I think you can use Ursul's Vortex on Sarkarthar in HFC. That's like the one fight you can use it on. So it's gonna be, you know, it's a thing. Incapacitating Roar. I mean,
no.
It
doesn't work. Yeah.
It does have situations where it's useful. Like I remember we did 10-man Garrosh Heroic. It was actually really good for that because you can solo interrupt all the MCs with the Disorient, which is pretty cool.
Just until they get empowered.
Yeah, until they get empowered or the Disorient breaks and then they just cast it again. But it was pretty good because you could wait until the cast is about to finish and then Disorient them all and you get like an extra 2 seconds. But that's the last time that talent was used by me, so it's definitely not that useful.
Right. So your only other DPS tier, which is so weird, comparing certain classes, you find out, like, I have 4, arguably, and, like, warriors have 4. A lot of classes have, like, 2 or 3, but you only have 2. So your other DPS-oriented tier talent, of course, is your level 60s. So you're looking at Soul of the Forest, Incarnation, and Force of Nature. And I've always got to ask this first. Force of Nature is always like, why don't you spawn little kitty cats instead of trees? Or Boomkins spawn little boom chickens. Like, but nope.
Yeah, we need cats that cast Thrash instead of Rake. That's make it good.
Yeah. But Force of Nature is bad. I would assume that you guys just always take Incarnation, or is there an argument for Soul of the Forest?
You say that we have 2 talent tiers for damage, and we have 2 talent tiers for damage, and in both of them we have only 1 choice.
1 choice.
I mean, okay, Lunar Inspiration has been historically somewhat of a choice, and it sort of is, but Incarnation is the only choice. And I feel like in the level 60 tier, there's a real missed opportunity there to give the class some more versatility, because so much of the class's strengths are tied up in Incarnation. It's really strong burst damage. It's cleave damage because Incarnation lets you get the double damage rakes, and it's strong single target damage. So if you put other interesting alternatives in the level 60 tier, you could really add some versatility and like make some interesting options.
I mean, because like Force of Nature seems like it'd be like a passive, like you get like these treants all the time kind of deal. But then I look at Soul Forest for Feral, and you get 20 energy on finishing moves, but you guys have already said, like, energy is, like, never a thing, because they always give you set bonuses that give you energy.
See, my thought for what Soul of the Forest should do is it should give 2 or 3 energy on each bleed tick, just like the old set bonus.
Okay. So it's like a...
So it'd be more for, like, AoE, or for using your cleaving while focusing a target.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. And you're trading away all the bursts you get from Incarnation to get that.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is a lot.
I imagine so.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's like the definitive problem, I guess. That's sort of like the same thing that Death Knights had, is that they have talent choices, and they are cool talents, but they have no actual choice in their talents based on their spec for DPS and for blood. And that feels like it's the same thing that plagues you. I'm sort of getting pigeonholed into a talent specialization based on my tier 18 sets for enhancement, but at least I, like, through BRF, like, I moved around my 3 DPS tiers, you know, rather frequently, but not anymore. And you guys haven't the whole tier basically. So
yeah, the last time I wasn't spec'd into Incarnation, I think the only time I wasn't spec'd into Incarnation, the whole expansion, was there was one point where I spec'd into Force of Nature to make sure that it was actually as bad as the simulation said. And it was. Actually, wait, no. It was slightly off, but it was still really bad. So, yeah. There's not really any reason to take the other talents.
It doesn't look very compelling for it, no.
It's just too versatile, basically. The other talents have very limited application, and Incarnation is benefit in a lot of situations, because you get like 90 seconds, almost 90 seconds of roar every 3 minutes from the Glyph of Savage Roar whenever you shred or rake in stealth. And then you get the double damage rake for like 45 seconds from the improved rake perk every time you rake in stealth. And then on top of that, you get the increased crit chance on shred and the damage on shred. It's just so much.
I mean,
that's really hard for the other talents to compare.
That's what they've said about talent balance, is that if there are strong outliers, this is the interview that I have with the devs months ago now with Chris Zerhut himself, that if there are talent outliers that are way too strong, what they will do is not nerf those talents, they will buff the other ones. But from what I've always seen and heard about for Druids is they've, like, buffed and then always nerfed Force of Nature, so it's like never a choice then. And then Soul of the Forest between different of the specs of Druid always been, like, either, like, way too good, like Resto, or, like, just awful for every other spec. And it just seems like you only have 6 options for DPS talents between 2 tiers for Druids, and they just can't, you get 1 and 1. I don't know.
Mean, they've been trying to buff Force of Nature, like, they buffed it twice now, I think, once in 6.1 and once in 6.2, but it's still not good enough. Yeah. I'm not really sure what they're...
It's not a fun ability either. There's nothing interesting about it.
Yeah, that too. It's like you have this whole separate mini game that you play alongside your other rotation. Doesn't interact in any way. You have to just, like, pool charges for when your trinkets proc and then hit them so they do more damage. Yeah. But it has no interaction. And then Soul of the Forest, I'm really not sure what they're doing, because it's not been good the whole expansion. They haven't buffed it at all. Like, I guess they don't realize it's bad. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. And I find this more and more, and hopefully, obviously, because doing the show all this time, and we only have so many episodes left in the Warlords standard junket to really find out where these holes are. And this is the second expansion, though, with this talent system, and it's still kind of... So, how about glyphs? Are there any glyph choices that are really good to talk about, that are, like, good to have? Is there only swapping around of glyphs that... no, sorry. I'm going to do tier 15 first, rather. I mean, Feral Swiftness is pretty damn good. Movement for melee DPS is always really important. Is that sort of like the set it and forget it? Or are there, you said Displacer Beast maybe for, like, chasing after a boss with Capacitor?
My default is normally Displacer Beast, just because it's most reliable if you need to get somewhere.
Yeah.
It'll move you. And you can use Skull Bash as, like, a backup charge when Displacer Beast is on cooldown.
Oh, okay.
But I've definitely used all 3 in Blackrock Foundry in friend fights.
Really? What would you use Wild Charge on?
Darmak. I don't know why. It's just because there's always targets that I can charge.
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay.
It's actually a pretty well-balanced tier. Like, it's probably the best tier we have.
And it's just movement.
I mean, it is.
It's
If
just
you
movement.
prefer one over the other, like if you're not a fan of using active abilities, you could definitely take Feline Swiftness. You're not really
Sure.
gimping yourself that much.
Right.
Obviously, it depends on the situation.
Yeah.
I used to be a big fan of Wild Charge last expansion, but then this expansion they started implementing raid mechanics like there's a giant void zone, and you're on one side, you want to get to the other side. What
Right.
talent am I going to take? Probably
Get the hell
one
out of
that
the way.
teleports. Because Wild Charge works like Charge, and you actually move through the area you fly over. So
Yeah, that's why I didn't want to use it on Black Hand, even though it would be really nice for the third phase. To have a
Yeah.
shorter cooldown.
I can't say I haven't blinked into bombs before, though.
Yeah.
Time.
Our Resto Druid
Jump off
has
the balcony
before.
and hit blink and like, I'm dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll do glyphs now then. Any really important major glyphs to talk about? Well, first, any cosmetic glyphs that are super good. I'll bring this up. I think this is like a Druid thing that everyone feels is that combining your travel forms into one button is incredibly stupid. I will say from a outside-in standpoint. I mean, I was a Druid in vanilla World of Warcraft, but having to go from aquatic to stag to flight with one button is really dumb. Please, Blizzard, unbind these.
I actually don't mind it that much.
Get out!
The weird thing to me is I actually haven't flown around or like I haven't done stuff in the world enough.
Well, I
made
wonder
to be
why.
used to it yet is the weird part. Like I'll be flying to like Serpent Shrine Cavern to do something, and I enter the water and I turn into aquatic form. And it's like, wait, what just happened? Yeah,
Like,
that's
it's,
the thing.
It's good in theory, but it feels bad as a Druid because you're not actually changing your form.
Like, forgot that they did that because I always had Stag Lift.
Well, it also doesn't help that you can't fly in Draenor, so it just doesn't really come up.
Yeah, you don't really see it very often. Yes. But anyway, glyphs, yeah? Major glyphs, anything that it's important to remember?
You pretty much always... Okay, it's 9th life most of the time, unless you have like an attrition healing fight, then you can use Cat Form. Always glyph Savage Roar, and pretty much always glyph Stampeding Roar, and that like means you have no options. There.
You pretty much covered it. I like Cat Form over 9th life, but
I saw that
mean,
about you too. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a you can make points on both sides.
I mean, I used to think that I was going to use Cat Form a lot, and then I ended up using 9th life.
The actual cat form glyph isn't on here. Oh no, is it? Oh, it might be. There it is. Never mind. It's exclusive with 9th life, right?
Oh
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, because cat form glyph increases the healing done to you by 20%, whereas 9th life is just that reduces all damage taken while in cat form by 10%. So I guess I could see benefits for both.
Yeah. If you're not expecting to get killed by burst damage, then you'd want to take Cat Form.
Okay.
Yeah, that slot is basically pick your favorite between the two, stick it in there, and then
And forget about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, like Sten said, Savagery, you have to have, or not Savagery.
Not Savagery.
Glyph of Savage Roar. The names are confusing because it used to be called Savagery. But the Glyph of Savage Roar, you basically just stick in and leave it in forever. Not even kidding. Because it's so good with Incarnation, you always use Incarnation. That's part of the reason why you take Incarnation. And then the third slot, you can switch between all the other glyphs, but Stampeding Roar is the most useful one by far in most situations.
Yeah, there are situations where I wanted to use Survival Instincts glyph, but Stampeding Roar was too strong. I couldn't afford it.
Yeah, like Survival Instincts glyph is okay on Gruul, I guess.
Like, I wish I could use it on Black Hand to help with Phase 3 Smash Soaking, but I can't because they need Stampeding Roar. The raid needs Stampeding Roar.
Yep. And then Rebirth is good. At the same time, you almost all the time you're going to have somebody else doing the reses. So, especially since the res changed with the charges, you can just have one Resto's Druid in the raid that does all the resing all the time. And they just
made it instant for Resto and Balanced Druids, and then for Feral, it's instant, but we have to pay like a lot of damage and a lot of healing.
It's instant for Death
It
Knight
consumes
too,
our Predatory Swiftness.
Instant and free for DKs if they glyph it as well too. So. Yeah, I mean, I would argue the Glyph of Savage Roar is like a good glyph, but again, I think going back on the whole point of glyphs is that they shouldn't feel like a mandatory set it and forget it thing. It should be like a customizable little back and forth, and Savage Roar is just too efficient and too good.
Yeah, it's just too universally good is the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if Incarnation wasn't like the only thing you take, then it would be fine. Because if you use the other talents, then it's not great. I mean, obviously, it helps a lot on the opener, and if you're a Night Elf, it definitely... Or wait, I guess they fixed that, huh? You only get the Drake now.
Yeah, you only get the improved Drake now.
Yeah. So you'd only get it on the opener, and you can work around that as long as the other talents are competitive. But when Incarnation is the only option to take, there's no option there in the glyph slot. You absolutely have to take it.
Yeah, that's a frustration point. At least you can switch some of them out. Like, because I switch a bunch, I think, based on the fight for like AoE ranged or totem interaction, stuff like that. And it's weird to find other classes don't have as many options sometimes, but that's sort of the name of the game right now, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, some classes are like, I don't even have glyphs that I want to use, and some classes are like, I don't have slots for the glyphs that I want to use.
Yeah.
A bit of a spread.
Right. Well, all right, gentlemen, we come to that time. Soapbox it up. Do you have any tips and tricks to leave the Feral Druid community? Some words of wisdom, some lesser-known facts, some salt, even whatever you want to leave them with. Stenhaldi, you're up to bat first, sir. Go for it.
I don't think I have anything.
No, what? You're gonna have something. No? All you think. I'll go to Pawkets, and you can think.
Okay.
Pawkets, what you got?
So, next tier, I don't care if it's this expansion or the expansion after it, don't give us 2 set bonuses and a trinket that all give us tons of energy. That's a little silly.
Oh, yeah.
A little silly. I mean, if it was just the 2 set bonuses that give us energy, okay, that's silly. 1 set bonuses, that's fine with me. 2, okay, and then you add a trinket that makes them both worse. Like, I don't think they thought that one through that well.
But we talk about that, how they thought about the balance between feral and balanced druids and the trinket and the starfall versus yours single target.
They got to make the tunnel harder. That's what it's for.
Yeah. I always thought looking at it was that it alleviates the need to worry about keeping up your I'm going to say it again, hunger for blood oriented cooldowns, you know, and then actually focus more on your rotation stuff and utilizing the extra income of energy. But
the other thing is I don't know why you would add a set bonus that just like blatantly removes depth from the spec. That seems a little weird.
Which set bonus is that?
Both of the set bonuses.
Oh.
The C18 set bonuses. Because they discourage you from pooling. You have to aggressively... You basically just mash buttons all the time instead of like, okay, I need to pool to plan my resources for the next X seconds. That's gone now. You don't do that once you get both the bonuses, which is kind of sad.
Fair enough. Stan, you got anything else?
No, but I completely agree.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, then I'll take the questions to ask in chat a lot now. Which one of you makes a better pie? Pawkets or Sten?
I've never made a pie.
Well, there you have it.
Probably me. Yeah.
There you have it then.
I can make a decent pie. I'm not going to say it's great, but I made an apple pie with a lattice once. I think that's what it's called, right?
The
and
lattice top crust, yeah. Look at you. All right.
That's the extent of my pie making skills. Not that that's really hard. It takes forever.
That's enough for the button, gentlemen. That's enough for the button. We're going to get out of here and come back for the after show. Of course, thank you all for watching episode number 85 of Final Boss TV, your Wild and Game rating show for Feral Druids today. Thank you all so much for being here. Around the table real quick again, our guests returning for the Mr. Pandaria side of the show. We had Mr. Stenhaldi right there. Thank you for being on the show, sir. You can go follow him on Twitter at Stenhaldi. And good luck in Tier 18. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We also had Pawkets joining us for the first time. You can go follow him on Twitter at PawketsWow. And also on the Fluid Druid forums and other places on the internet. Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure.
Yep, thanks for having me. Also, quick shout out to Moonglade IRC on QuakeNet.
Ooh, is that a Druid IRC?
Druid IRC, yep. We need more people in there. So if you want to talk about Druidy things, go there.
Is the Druid IRC linked through Fluid Druid's website?
There's a thread on it, but it's not anywhere like super visible.
Okay. Yeah, sure, absolutely. If you are a Druid of any Druid? Just any Druid, right?
Yep, any Druid. It's a lot of Ferals in there right now, but I mean, feel free to come in if you're not a Feral. We don't bite, I swear.
Nice. Party in the Druid IRC. Absolutely. That sounds great. So thank you all for tuning in and being here. If you have questions for our guests, stick around for the after show. We're going to take a short break. walk around a little bit, get some water, let the cat out, let the dog in, what do you need to do, and we will come back to the after show, take your questions, of course. You can send them to us on Twitter. Don't forget about the huge Twitter giveaway again, of course. That's also there. And we'll take it from chat and Twitter. Next week will be a ranged DPS episode of the Warlock or Mage variety. Haven't locked in yet because of scheduling. Follow us on our social media, of course, on Facebook and Twitter to find out who's coming on the show. In a couple of days, we'll have that sorted out for you. And send your questions for either one now on the Ask a Boss button. Totally fine to do right now, not a problem. And yeah, trust in your Seal of Tempered Fate. If you're raiding tomorrow, the last time before it becomes whatever the hell it becomes on Tuesday. I don't remember what the name of it is. And for everyone behind the scenes of FinalBossTV, thank you so much for watching. And until the after show, until next week. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Wave goodbye. Sten, make a... That's good. I like it. That's good. That's...